Okay, so we are now recording. I'm going to open the floor to any questions that any of you have regarding assignments, group work. We got a midterm test coming next week. Any questions out there regarding those issues?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Olivia.
It's about the group assignment for this week. Towards
Okay.
the top of the instructions, it seems to make sense. We're finding 8 sources to do our outline of our paper, but towards the bottom, it seems like we need to have the whole thing ready to go. And then it also says the paper should be 3 to 5 pages in week 4. It should be titled week 4 when we're in week 6.
Okay. Let me check out. And this is under the actual assignment, the Dropbox assignment, correct?
It's under the content and then week 6. And then when you click on group project number 3 outline.
Oh, I am in the wrong class. Hold on a second. That would help if I'm in the right class. Okay, so outline. So 4 must be doc or named. Oh, yeah. Okay, so yeah, it does not need to be named week 4. Is that what you're talking about? Week 4 assignment group?
Right, but should it still be 3 to 5 pages at just our outline at this point?
Well, here's why I put that. And if you fall short, you're going to easily get 2 to 3 pages easily. And here's why, because you're going to be not only giving me your thesis statement, but you're going to start considering why this is important. And you're going to mix that in with your introduction. So for this paper, you should have a good idea of what your introduction is going to look like. You're going to talk about your thesis, and let's see what else. And then with your outline, and keep in mind, this is all double spaced. So you're going to go through, like I said, easily 2 to 3 pages pretty quickly. Some of you maybe more. So don't worry too much about the 3 to 5. If it falls short of that, that's no big deal. I just want to see that you have good organization, that you have a semi well-developed thesis statement. As you get into more of the details and you're starting to fill in all those bullet points within that outline, it's going to expand a lot, and you might even change your thesis statement or your hypothesis, which is fine. That's to be expected. It's designed to be fluid. Does that make sense?
Yes, and for the 8
Okay.
sources, they should be listed under the resources page, but they don't necessarily have to be incorporated into a paper just yet.
Yeah. You're not going to be able to cite. If you want to cite those sources, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, not really required for this. I just want to get an idea of what you're looking at if you have your sources picked. And then you'll, again, when you get to your rough draft here, I think week 9, you're going to have more citations. You're going to have it pretty much turned in product by week 9. So that's where you'll worry about putting your in-text citations with those references. Okay.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Yep. You're welcome. Any other questions?
I have a question, but
All right, go ahead, Amber. I saw your name light up there.
I had a question about the extra credit and the podcast, and I'm not sure how to do that. I want to. I'm just a little lost on it. So I wanted to do it.
Okay. So just really simple. Click on that link. You would need to register soon because I think it starts at 2 o'clock today. So you just register for that link, and then they send you another link once you register. So click on the link that I gave you. They'll give you another link, and then you go in there is it at 2 o'clock? No, it's 2. Who's attending that today? Is that 2 o'clock?
Yeah, it's 2 to
Yes,
3.
it's 2 o'clock.
Yeah. And you just click on that link, and then it'll take you right there. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So regarding that, before I move on to the next question, regarding that, if you do want to attend and get extra credit, it's 10 points extra credit. All you have to do is get into register. That's the number one thing. Watch it, and then fill out the evaluation at the end, and take a snapshot of that evaluation, because those evaluations will go to Dr. Chang, and he has it worked out that he's going to send that list back to me. But it'll be a lot easier if I see something in Dropbox, so that way there's no confusion that you did it. And there's no question. So take a snapshot, or if you get a confirmation email, PDF, whatever, just submit something showing that you completed that evaluation at the end of it, and that'll satisfy the extra credit. Okay. And I'm going to try and do a couple more of these throughout the session. I know, or semester. I know that Dr. Chang has 3 other ones that he's scheduled to do, and I think 1 or 2 of them fall within the semester. So keep an eye out. I'm going to be sending more of these out as I hear about them. Okay. Any other questions? I heard somebody else tried to bring through.
Yeah.
Before that, Taylor, hold on one second here. Let me address this question. 3 to 5 pages include the outline and thesis and intro, or is the outline separate from the 3 to 5 pages? You're going to have a title page. Okay. So that does not, that we're not going to include that with the 3 to 5 pages. But, it doesn't matter. Don't pay attention to 3 to 5 pages. So I'll need a title page. I'll need your thesis and intro, and you can mix that in with your outline, because traditionally that's what you can do with an APA style outline, is put your thesis and your intro into that. Or you can have it separate if you want, however you want to do that. But make sure when you do the reference page, it's on its own separate page at the end. So I think I gave a lot of you feedback 2 weeks ago on how that should look. Okay. All right. So Clint, you go ahead.
Yeah.
You had a question.
Are we able to go through those quizzes that we took to study for the midterm?
Absolutely. Yep. That's why I opened them up. So
Okay.
you can, there are 2 ways you can do that. So if you want to start practicing now, you can go through those quizzes and take them as many times as you want. Now, the limitation with those quizzes is that some of them have about 20 to 30 questions in a pool that you're getting random 10 out of. Okay. So you're only going to be able to take 10 at a time, which means you're not getting all those questions. You might get them randomly, but there's no guarantee of that. But it's a great way to practice if you want to move ahead. As of this Friday, I'm going to be opening up practice quizzes, which will be under week 7 resources. I think, let me make sure, double check. So week 7 resources, I'm going to have practice quizzes. Okay. And those will open up first thing Friday morning. Now you can take those because they're going to have all of the questions random order. So I randomized it. It's not going to be in order, and it's not going to give you any answers. So if you don't know the answer to it and it comes up as an incorrect item, you'll have to go back and look up the answer yourself. I'm not going to give you all the work, I'm going to make you work for it a little bit. But yeah, if you go through those quizzes, I mean, I've seen students, I've run these exams before in the past, and students that take these quizzes 3, 4, 5, 6 times even, all of them, they do very well. And I can say I've had a lot of students that practice those quizzes get about, they get 100% with about 10 to 15 minutes worth of work. So if you know those, you're going to recognize them as they come up. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So,
Any other questions?
yeah, me.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi. So
How are you doing?
Oh well. I was able to get the free, like the 14-day trial thing yesterday. I forgot to email you back about that, but I still haven't received the email from the other person.
All right. Get
I mean,
with
I
me
can
after.
buy it again. Like if it really is like about buying
that's
it again.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Gracias.
I'll tell you what. Just hang back after class here, and we'll chat about that quickly. Okay.
Okay, that works.
All right. Any other questions?
So really quickly to go back to the outline for this week, if we use a decimal outline APA style, and we have like 1.0 being our introduction, and then 1.1 being some like subtopics that'll be under that. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Anything that represents an APA style, including font, including double space, including margins, will be acceptable. There are some variances in how APA does that. Some of them will do
Yeah, I got
like
it.
a breakdown of
Oh, yo no tengo. Él me lo dio anoche.
all right. Let me mute her. Okay. She forgot to mute herself. But yeah, any variation of those, however you want to label them will be fine, as long as I can tell what the order and the flow of the outline is. Okay.
Wait, what day is the midterm exam on again?
Good question. So I'm going to open up the midterm at midnight Monday morning. Or midnight Sunday night, I guess. I don't know, however you want to consider that. So at 12 a.m. Monday, technically, it'll be available for you to take. Now, I'm going to ask that everybody please get it done, have it completed by midnight Friday, because I have your grades that are due. I'm going to be submitting those on Sunday, your midterm grades. So please get that done by Friday night, so I can have Saturday. I work on weekends too, so I'll be able to get those grades in on time. Okay.
So we
multiple choice too.
Multiple choice, 50 multiple choice questions, 2 points each for a total of 100 points. You don't have to take it at any specific time. There's no lockdown browser, no tricks, no gimmicks, no anything really. So you just take it whenever it's convenient. You'll have 90 minutes to take it. Yeah, and pretty straightforward.
The practice quizzes that you're uploading that you won't, the practice quizzes that you're opening up, they'll obtain all the questions, not just the random 10.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So yeah, if you want to wait till Friday and hit those, that's fine. I'm also talking to, we don't meet on Monday, by the way. I don't know if I talked to you about that, because I think Monday is a holiday. So we will not, I'm sorry, Tuesday. Yeah. So I think we have the switch day on Tuesday, right?
Right. We have our Monday classes on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Monday, I'm still new to this concept. I work at a couple universities, and this is the only one that I've seen that does that. So yeah, your Monday classes will be on Tuesday. So we will not meet Tuesday. I will meet with you Thursday, but I'm not going to have any lectures. I'll just be available for office hours and questions. And I'm working with James to hopefully is James with us today? I don't think he is. I think he has class. But I'll be working with him. Hopefully he'll have like some kind of game or something that we can all take part in. And of course, I'll send you an email if that's the case. But yeah. So I forgot what the original question was.
Sorry. So if the game will be on Thursday, should we kind of wait to take the exam on Friday, or however we're feeling comfortable?
However you're feeling comfortable. If you want to wait, or if you do wait and you want to take it Thursday, I'm not guaranteeing. What we usually do for a review is an in-class Jeopardy, where I get all groups together and have people break off into groups, and whatever group does best, they get a prize and all sorts of fun stuff. But I don't know how to do that via Zoom. Has anybody done any kind of like game or review via Zoom? That you care to share any of your other classes?
No, all I know is Kahoot.
Yeah, Kahoot, and there was another.
Quizzies? Yeah, the Quizzies. I don't know how to spell it, but
What's it called?
Quizzies.
Chrissy's?
QUI. Yeah.
Oh, and that's something you can do via Zoom?
Yeah, can you just share, screen share, and just like Kahoot.
Okay. Yeah, and the problem with Kahoot is I think there are license limitations to it. So I'm looking into some things. Hopefully, I'll have something. Don't count on Thursday to be. It's just I'm just kind of doing something to have fun with it. And even if you take it and if you want to attend, If we have something, you're welcome to do that. So yeah, more to come on that. I'm not sure how we're going to do that. I want to, but what I like to do and reality are sometimes two very different things. So let me, I'll get back to you for sure. But yeah, don't count on Thursday to be helpful. Use those practice quizzes. That's where you're gonna get the most out of practicing for the exam. Okay.
I'm sorry, you
All
said
right.
on Friday
Go
you
ahead.
should use big compilations like of all of the quiz questions from this semester so far posted, maybe on Friday.
Yeah, that'll be on Friday morning. You'll have access to those practice quizzes under week 7 resources.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? All right. Wow. It's about 20 minutes of our time. Very good. That's why I do the questions ahead of time, because I know we tend to run into stuff. So I want to go over some theories of intelligence, because I know there's a lot of information in your book, and it's probably misunderstood exactly where intelligence testing came from and where we are today. Okay. Before we get into that, though, I want to share a quick little, and this was also in your book, a quick little vignette. All right. So you probably recognize this in your book. So Diane is an eager 4th grade teacher who loves history. Consequently, every year she's frustrated when she teaches a unit on the U.S. Civil War. Although she's passionate about the subject, her enthusiasm is not contagious. Instead, her students' eyes glaze over and she can see young minds drifting off. And of course, they never seem to grasp the historical significance of this war. Diana wishes that there was some way to teach this unit, one that would engage her students more effectively. So as we're going through some of these theoretical concepts, I want you to keep in mind this, why didn't that update? There we go. Keep in mind this scenario, because we're going to be revisiting this, all right? So with that, we really need to understand what intelligence is. So through either your book or through your own personal experiences, intelligence. You got to be intelligent to spell intelligence, right? What is your definition, or what is your understanding of intelligence?
It's of knowledge in it.
Okay. Knowledge. What else? Anybody else?
Your understanding
Like
of
understanding.
like a concept.
Okay, guys, go ahead, Amanda. What was that?
Your understanding of a concept.
Understanding of a concept. Okay. Okay. And I heard somebody else ring in there.
Yeah, that was me. I said the same thing. I had like the understanding.
Okay.
Maybe
What-
someone that can handle new situations that are thrown at them and solve problems efficiently.
All right. Problem solving. Good one. And
Maybe self-awareness. I don't know.
okay, handle. We'll call them novel situations. And awareness. Okay. All right. So I'm going to kind of give you, so the book left it really open for interpretation, and I like why they did that. Because if you remember back in the earlier part of the semester, I explained to you how psychology and even child development, we have areas that are really more of a hard science, like biological and the genetics, but when we move into some of these theories as to what memory is, and what intelligence is, and what learning is, we're really basing it off of what we were able to observe in people. And intelligence is one of those things that we get it, we know what it is about what it is, but there are numerous, many concepts and theories that really explain where intelligence came from, what it does, and how it makes us adaptable to our environment. Okay, so with that in mind, there really is no solid, it really depends on whom you ask as to what a good definition of intelligence is. So what happened back around the turn of the century of 1900 is we had a lot of immigration. We had a lot of people coming from overseas and really flooding our education system. Now, prior to that, there was a lot of conformity. People were raised in small communities, and they were able to get into schools and adhere to very strict formats, right? But all of a sudden, we get this flood of immigration that comes into our country, and it really changed how we looked at education. So a guy named Charles Spearman, back in around 1904, started coming up with, tried to answer this question, is how can we better define who is suitable for school and who is not suitable for school? And he came up with a concept called general intelligence. Or the G factor, which you might see in your book as G, like that, okay? And what he posited is that the G factor is responsible for all performance on mental tasks. Makes sense, right? A little loose, but it makes sense. So he looked at mental abilities, capabilities. So he really laid the foundation for where we look at for our school systems to match what the child's ability is, okay? And that was generally accepted. He was able to label children as either being bright, normal, or dull. Now, how many of you have kids or work with kids? That what would be the problem with those terms going into a school system?
Unprofessional.
Okay, unprofessional, labeling, right? What are the dangers with labels? It might pigeonhole a student into a certain demographic or class where expectations might be low, therefore they may not thrive too well, right? So great concept. He really started to come up with some ideas that made sense, because we needed to know what children's abilities were, because they really deviated from those normals that we were used to with smaller societies and smaller classes, right? So along comes Thurstone and Thurstone. I'm going to put Thurstone squared, okay, in 1941. So they expanded upon this because they recognized that Spearman's concepts were very confined, and there were probably a lot more angles to intelligence than what we really gave him credit for. So they came up with 7 distinct patterns. So they used the 3 that for general intelligence that Spearman suggested. Oops, distinct. Distinct patterns, which your book outlines pretty thoroughly. And actually, I think I have, yep, I do. So those 7 distinct patterns expanded, if you notice, still looking at general intelligence, okay? But broke those down because initially Spearman posited something very similar with, let me actually use a different color, with fluid intelligence, crystallized intelligence, and general memory. And I think processing speed was the other area that Spearman had thought about. So they added a couple more here, looking at broad visual perception, broad auditory perception, and broad retrieval ability. And within each one of these distinct patterns, they were able to come up with tasks or tests that look at these. So sequential reasoning, looking at numbers. So are they able to count based on patterns, right? Induction, kind of coming up with ideas based on the sequence of things. So for example, if I were to say, you saw like a slideshow, a comic book of a person walking down the street, and all of a sudden they show the next clip of a banana peel in the street, and then they show the next clip, the person walking up to the banana. What do you think the fourth clip would be?
Slipping on the banana.
Slipping on the banana, right? Congratulations. You know, you just showed good fluid intelligence, sequential reasoning and induction. What happens next, right? So crystallized language, again, something that Spearman helped out with positing was understanding printed language, comprehension, and vocabulary knowledge. Now, this is really important when we look at intelligence, okay? Because this happens earlier on, and we really have, as caregivers and educators, we have almost a duty, a responsibility to making sure that we are giving children the tools to master these skills, okay? And if they don't, there might be some developmental issues that we need to look at. But for the most part, a child's ability to understand printed language and vocabulary knowledge will set them up with success for mastering many of these other, not all of them, like especially auditory. You know, there might be some peaks and valleys with auditory that could be explained otherwise. But for the most part, being able to understand the world around them is based on their understanding of language. So keep that in mind as we kind of move forward with this stuff. All right, so additional, let's see here. So another theory that came along was Gardner's, oops, don't like red. Red is angry, I don't like to, I'm very big on colors. So Gardner's theory, oops. Theory of multiple intelligence. Intelligence. Oops. Can't, there we go. Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence took the 7 distinct patterns that Thurstone came up with and expanded upon that, because what they were concerned with is our focus on being able to set up tasks through intelligence testing, right? We looked at IQ, and we developed based on IQ as being mental age, mental abilities versus their chronological. I have somebody with their mute off. Okay, there we go. With their chronological age. Okay, so let's look at this as an example. So say that a 4-year-old is able to master multiplication, okay? Now let's go with 5. I think 5 would be a little bit, no. So at what age do we usually see multiplication? Actually, we're gonna go with 6. So current age is 6. Multiplication is what, maybe 8 years old? So we could
Like
say
9, 10.
Okay, well, we'll go with 8, just keep it kind of neat and easy, all right? So what we would be looking at is kind of just basic math here, is we could say without a doubt that that child is probably showing, what is 8 divided by 6? 2, 125. We would say that the IQ is approximately 125 based on what these theorists had been able to measure. So Gardner comes along and says, this is great, but we have to take into effect culture, because maybe certain cultures may not be geared towards that task, or maybe perhaps based on socioeconomic status, and I think your book uses as an example. So if we used an analogy that related to orchestra and conductors, certain cultures may not be influenced by music, and a child may have a difficult time understanding that language. So that would be a barrier. So Gardner came along and said, this doesn't make sense. We can't really base intelligence on what we can measure, because we can't measure everything. So he added a couple other ideas on there and said that there are implications to education. There are limitations to it. So in other words, if we took somebody from the Middle East and we gave them an intelligence test, one of our standardized intelligence tests like the WISC or the Stanford Binet, they may not do as well on that test. Now, if you go back to our original theories or definition of intelligence, knowledge, right? So if our knowledge is based on Western society and we have somebody of Middle Eastern descent raised in that culture, they may show less capabilities and knowledge. What about concepts? They may not be able to understand Western civilization concepts, correct? Problem solving. We may see they're able to problem solve and adapt to their environment, handle novel situations. So you see what I'm saying here, an awareness. We could have somebody that's technically intelligent from a Middle Eastern society and test them based on Western society standards, and they may not do well. And again, as we talked about, if you go into a public school system as being labeled as having a lower IQ, or as Spearman suggested, dull, what kind of impact is that going to have on that student? Any thoughts? What would a label do to a student in a public school system?
They could be placed. Sorry, go ahead.
They could have a low self-esteem.
Yeah, possibly, because people are going to be looking at them a little bit differently, possibly the parents, right? So that now, because of that label, we could be looking at a stifling of an education, stifling of expectations, because maybe their expectations are going to be a little bit lower of that child. We're going to see some negative impacts and long-term impacts of that child. So using these IQ, I mean, it's great. But does it determine whether that child is successful or not? Not necessarily, and that's why, because we have to consider culture, and that's what Gardner considered with the nine. I don't think I have them listed here. Yeah. So his 9 factors that he considered were very similar to the 7: logical, mathematical, spatial. I think he converted auditory to musical, body kinesthetics. Interpersonal and intrapersonal are 2 that he added to this list: naturalistic and existential. So if you think about it, we have people that are all walks of life, all interests, all talents. We can consider them to be very, very intelligent in some way, right? So for example, I think your book used Yo-Yo Ma. Yo-Yo Ma is a famous world-renowned cellist. And when he was 7 years old, he was good enough to play for I think it was President Kennedy. So while he may not be he may not be an athlete, so you would say he's probably a little lacking on being an athlete. I don't know much about his interpersonal or intrapersonal skills. Naturalistic, he may have a worldly knowledge because he's probably been around, but music, we're going to see him really high on music, right? Very high on music. Spatial, probably very high, because you have to You have to be aware of how certain physics work to make music, right? Logical and mathematical, I could probably say high. And again, I don't know much about his linguistic skills, so I'm going to kind of just keep a question mark for that. But what this is showing is that we can see intelligence, especially using the example of Yo-Yo Ma. And for example, Oprah would be considered very intelligent, right? Why? Because we see her, she is very charismatic. She's got great interpersonal and interpersonal skills. I think her understanding of the natural world is very high, right? So my point is, maybe she's not good, I don't know, her math skills, so that might be a question. Spatial skills, again, I don't know. So my point is, everybody can explain or can be explained in certain levels of intelligence based on these skills. Now, what does our education system currently really focus on of these 9 skills, would you say? Any guesses?
Math and linguistic.
Yeah, math, reading, writing, arithmetic, maybe spatial, right? That's what we look at, right? Our fundamental school skills. STEAM looks at these 3 areas, all right? Kind of leaving out, maybe because of budgetary, maybe because we don't understand how we might look at interpersonal skills if they have speech classes, right? But really, do we focus on naturalistic or existential in school systems? Probably not, even though these might be marks of intelligence of some way, right? So am I making sense so far? All right. So how do we measure intelligence? Back in France, around the same time as Charles Spearman was developing his theories of what intelligence is and why it's important, we had the French government looked at Binet and his partner Simon to come up with a way to measure intelligence. And again, we kind of skirted this issue a few minutes ago with labels, right? How do they rate against their own peers? Kids their age. So if you're 7 years old and you're able to start counting, or you have a high range of counting to 100, that's pretty normal. So if you've got 1,000 children that they've measured this against, and out of the 1,000, 2/3 of them can count to 100. Maybe some of them are higher, maybe some of them are lower. They kind of designed would look like with intelligence as a bell curve, which is what's depicted here. So they posited that 2/3 of the population fall within the 85 to 115 range. This is what we would consider normal, right? A smaller percentage, around 15%, fall in between the 70 and 30, outside of the 85 and 15. And we would consider that marginal, or we would consider deficit here, or above average to the level of 130. And of course, at the very far ends of this, we would consider gifted or developmentally challenged, okay? So that's what they came up with. And based on how children ranked, this was the middle marker, was 100%, right? Now, we talked about mental age versus current age, chronological age. We still use the IQ system to do that, but it's not measured based on MA versus chronological age. Now they use, like with the WISC and Stanford-Binet, they use a much more complex system and task to measure how we get the current IQ. So no more mental age versus current age. It was 2 percentile. it was too rigid for us to use it for measuring IQ. Okay. All right. So what were some ways, if we're looking at education system, let's kind of go back to our example with Diane. What would be, like, say she has students in her class that aren't able to grasp history. What would be some problems with that? Why is the history of the Civil War, why is that, why would that be dry compared to other areas that she teaches? What would be some problems?
It's a lot of reading. It's like,
Okay.
yeah, it's a lot of reading and sitting there and just trying to, take in the knowledge rather than doing anything.
Okay. So reading would be a problem. I know that I had that issue. History was probably my least favorite subject when I was going through school. It was because being able to read something and put that into a frame of mind or a story was a difficult task for me, as it is for many other students. So what I would like to do is break you off into groups today. And I'm going to post, let me do that now. I'm going to post that scenario again. Now, what I'd like you to do in your groups is consider in what ways, hopefully that worked. Let me try again. Copy. Oh. What are some ideas based on some of the theories that we talked about and looking at the education models, because it is very rigid. It tends to be very rigid. Here's the book, teach it. Give consideration to the students that need additional time to read it, but is that enough? So look at her case and consider how you would advise her to make changes to how she can present this to children, okay? Or if she should exclude it, whatever your suggestion is, but have a look at it. I'm gonna share my screen with you here, or share my video with you. Does everybody understand what they're doing with this? So if you look in the chat room, I put the scenario, Diane's scenario. So I'll break you off into groups, talk about what ways she could teach this unit. What would your suggestions be, okay? And sending you now. All right. I'll give you about 5 minutes. We have everybody back. All right. So what did we come up with? What were some of your suggestions for Diane? Diana.
She can do like an active skit or prompt, like a play, to make them understand and like realize what happened in history, or like do like fun YouTube videos and like games.
Okay, so make it more interactive.
Yeah.
If you remember, back in the last chapter, we talked about memory and learning styles, right? So
Yeah.
maybe some students may have a deficit of reading, being able to read and convert that information they're reading in a book to active memory. So doing some kind of interaction with auditory and visual might also prove to be effective. Absolutely. What else? What are some your other ideas?
Said the same thing, like a reenactment or creating different foods from that time period, or bringing in like a guest speaker.
Okay. So again, having more interaction. What about like students that might be a little bit more musically inclined, coming up with songs from that era, right? That may either sing about it or maybe representative of that time or conflict or whatever. Right? Any other suggestions? Did anybody have anything a little bit different?
I was also thinking they could do like some sort of like Jeopardy game where they break up into teams and do one about like the U.S. Civil War.
Okay, all right. So kind of a little bit more rote memory, working with the kind of building it into their memory a little bit more as to what they're reading, because dates are really hard to just memorize, right? Unless you have some kind of concept or trick to doing that, it might be difficult for especially young children to in fourth grade to memorize, uh, 1861 is when Lincoln was shot, or was it 63? See, this is why I did not do well in history. But yeah, coming up with some kind of rote memory to compare those things might be helpful. Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to stop here for today, because what I want to cover on Thursday is when we encounter some of those more extremes. Either developmentally delayed, or like the lower IQ side of things, or the other opposite end of the spectrum will be more the gifted. And what do we do with those scenarios in an educational setting, or in child rearing and development? Okay. So any questions on what we covered today? Any comments? All right.
I just want to know people from the Civil War are not living. I meant like the Civil War enthusiasts.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, I got you. Thanks for sharing that, Amanda. Yeah, no, I was tracking with you, because you got a lot of enthusiasts, especially down south, right? If you go down there, they have the Civil War enactments, and yeah, I knew what you mean, or I knew what you meant. Thanks for clarifying that. Anything else?
Yeah, my mom laughed at me.
All right. All right, so if there's nothing else, I'm going to stop recording here. I'll stick by for